What's up everyone, Mumble here with another Starfield update video. Today Bethesda is treating us to a wealth of new Starfield information by having lead quest designer Shen and lead designer Emil Pagliarulo answer 16 of the community's most burning questions on Discord. I'll be covering each response in detail and discussing the gameplay implications it'll have on your journey through the stars as efficiently as possible here. Let's dive in. Alright, so first question we've got is, can we buy houses or property in main cities? Will's first answer is, yep, there's housing in different cities that the player can get. Some you have to purchase and some are rewards for specific quests. Emil says, sure can. You can purchase a dwelling in all major cities in the game, and there's at least one that you specifically get for completing something. So this comes as very welcome news because prior to this point, most people were under the impression that Outposts would serve as our true home away from home. It sounds like Outposts will have that opportunity to scratch that itch, but I think they'll serve more of a utility aspect at this point, and we'll have some customization for making it feel personalized, whereas these actual houses will truly feel like your home. Considering the main cities within Starfield are likely where we're going to be doing a large portion of our trading, our ship upgrading, and other general repeatable activities, it makes sense to have an actual place to call home base where we can store extra cargo and items and actually outfit to fit our personal needs, rather than outposts that are likely going to just be placed, willy-nilly in different planets that will likely only serve utility purposes for gathering resources more than anything. I had a feeling this would be the case considering the dream home trait more or less was worded to indicate that you'd own a piece of property rather than an outpost being the dream home that you received because it had a mortgage attached to it. I'm wondering if we'll also have other mortgage or costs associated with being able to acquire more property, and if we'll even have the opportunity to choose where these dwellings will be. With regards to Emil's point on there's one that you get for specifically completing something, maybe that's for completing the campaign, it could be for completing a faction line quest, maybe we'll be able to actually take over the Constellation home base. That would be pretty interesting. We'll just have to see. Question 2, if we get the kid stuff trait, will our parents be generated based on our character's look, or are there standard parents put in place? What benefits might there be? Will says, our programmers on our new face tech were excited to make a function that could try to match your custom face and then create the two parents. So they're based on what your character looks like, although the specific math involved is a bit beyond me. We had similar tech in our previous games. Emil's response is pretty similar. They've had this in the past in Fallout 3 and Fallout 4, and then in Starfield, if you take the kid stuff trait, your parents will be based off of you. No spoilers, but he says, I think fans will really appreciate the actors that we got to play these roles, and they got so into it, it's awesome. So cool, hopefully we get some really passionate voice actors playing the roles of our parents. I'm wondering if they have different voice types based on our characters so that you get a little variety in different playthroughs. That'd be cool. And you can get stuff is the last thing that he says. So obviously kid stuff is, we're supposed to be incentivized by picking this trait, and we're paying our parents a portion of our income, so you'd hope there's some goodies that they're going to be able to give us. So just a cool answer overall, nothing too special here. This one's a big one. For those of us who have never played a BGS game and will be starting with Starfield, what information should we know that will make the experience more impactful right from the start? How deep should we go into creating our character's backstory before we start the game? So we've got quite a few answers here and like a whole wall of React emotes here. So we make our games for both fans, old and new. You can jump in without ever having played a BGS title before. You start up in the same spot. What happened to you before the game start is totally up to you and your headcanon. Next couple answers here are actually pretty interesting. So we like to look at it less as playing a game, more about living in the universe created. So settle in, go at your own pace, and pretty soon you'll learn all the systems and be adventuring through the settled systems the way you choose. This one is very interesting. So there's a trait and background system that will let you specify about yourself, but you can also select an anonymous background and no traits if you want. So this is actually really fascinating. I did not know that you could just choose an anonymous background. I was under the impression you had to choose one no matter what, albeit there was a little more in the slider for backgrounds that we saw in the direct that we didn't necessarily see the full answer to. So that's pretty cool that there's an anonymous background that we can choose. I know traits have always been optional, but I'm wondering if this anonymous background has implications on how dialogue works when you're interacting with certain NPCs within the game. I believe we've seen stuff like Beast Hunter where that actually has implications on the dialogue. In terms of if you've never played a BGS game before, try anything. We're a simulation game as well as a role-playing game, so we try to support the player doing what they want as much as we can. As for going into the character's backstory, that's entirely up to you. I'm all about that headcanon. For example, my latest character is a working schlub named Mitch Dombrowski. He's a husky, good-natured space trucker, and while he'll do whatever he needs to defend himself, he'll never shoot first. He's like Han Solo's sweeter older brother. So yeah, it sounds like it's really just up to you to decide who your character is going to be, and maybe we'll see some of those decisions impact the dialogue that we get based on that background choice. Question 4, how will the smuggling cargo system work? Can we hide it somewhere on the ship and sell it for more currency later? Certain items are considered contraband, and you'll need to smuggle them past security ships that are in orbit of major settlements. There are specific items that are considered contraband, meaning they're pretty much illegal everywhere. And yes, you can hide them using special ship modules you can purchase, so don't get caught with those harvested organs, wink. The economy is fixed, but prices of bought and sold goods can change based on the skills you choose. So nothing too much new here. We already knew that contraband was a thing from footage in the direct. What is new is that they have stated that there are ship modules that you can purchase to hide that contraband. That's pretty cool. I did notice that some modules looked like they had these small storage devices, and there are also little vault-like looking things if you freeze on a few frames in the direct. So that definitely not lines up. We just haven't seen any confirmation of what those habs or modules would be that contain those secret storage compartments. Will there be a jail system if we commit crimes? Yes, you can elect to go to jail or pay a fine when you're arrested, or even resist arrest and try to escape. Yep, the settled systems is more like Skyrim than Fallout 4's Commonwealth in that regard. There's civilization, there's government, and there are laws. And in a couple cases, we actually explore the themes of crime and punishment in our futuristic universe. So that's cool. So pretty similar to Skyrim based on what they're saying. So I'm wondering what those punishments are like and what the bounty system will be like for committing those crimes, and how aggressive it potentially makes the townsfolk if you get your bounties too high, if they are kind of like a shoot on sight versus chase you down the streets depending on how far you push things. Question 6, will time pass when not in the game? For example, will my trade routes, outposts, and mining operations continue to produce, or does that only occur while actively playing? The sim only runs while you're actively playing, no sleeping on the job. Only while actively playing. I figured that would be the case. It would be pretty wild if things just kept running infinitely while you were out of game, so nothing too surprising here. Question 7. Can you be a double agent in the game? For example, if you join the United Colonies, can you also join the Crimson Fleet and give the United Colonies information? And what factions have that feature if they do? All of the playable factions can be completed independently. Interesting. That's exactly what you can do. Infiltrate the Crimson Fleet for UC system defense. It's specific to that questline. Interesting. So they're giving away a little bit on how some of the faction interactions might play out. The Crimson Fleet storyline does feature you being an undercover agent inside the fleet on behalf of UC SysDef, a specific military branch in the United Colonies. But whether you betray the fleet or UC SysDef is your choice, you will get to make. So that's cool. So pretty similar to past BGS games where you kind of get the final choice on how the ending plays out. You get a choice to play all of the factions. It sounds like you're not being fully locked out of anything. It just may impact the final ending of certain quest lines. Question 8, depending on traits selected during character creation, will it at all be possible to play through the game in a pacifist mode, i.e. without killing anyone or even potentially anything? I can't guarantee every mission can be completed in pacifist mode, but we do have a couple of systems that will help. So we talked about this very early on during pre-production, whether or not we would fully support a non-lethal playthrough. We realized that for various reasons, that wasn't totally feasible. Yeah, I agree, that'd be pretty tough for a game like this. One system is our speech challenge game, where you can persuade someone to do something like not fight you. Now that being said, there are some good non-lethal options, whether through dialogue or by using a non-lethal weapon. Those can be used in certain situations, honestly a lot of situations, though I couldn't comfortably say you can complete the entire game without killing anything whatsoever. The settled systems is mostly civilized, but it can be a dangerous place if you're going off the beaten path, and you're absolutely going off the beaten path. The speech challenge game is added in specific scripted moments, and we try to add one into most quests where important characters confront you. So yeah, I'm not really surprised by this answer. Like a true pacifist mode in this game would be pretty surprising to me. I think there's a lot of conflict inherently rooted in a game like this, and so fully avoiding combat would seem pretty difficult. So at least with some of those speech options, it sounds like you'll be able to attempt to avoid physical confrontation, but I'm guessing certain things are going to have to take place that lead to the ultimate demise of certain characters if you're playing through the quest lines and faction lines. Question 9. What are the beliefs and basic history of the religions we can join? Sanctum Universum, Enlightened, Great Serpent, for example. Okay, so this one, yeah. Existing IRL religions are part of the Starfield universe, with folks of all religions and denominations out there, but we don't really focus on them. Instead, we highlight 3 new ones specific to the game. Sanctum Universum is only a couple decades old in our timeline, but has gained a lot of prominence. They believe that God is out there, somewhere in the universe, and that humans' ability to travel the stars brings us closer to God. Sanctum Universum, the members, called Universals, that's new, believe that God very much exists somewhere in the universe, that a higher power is guiding us all. Specifically, they believe that humanity's ability to travel the universe and grab jump is God's way of saying, I'm out there, come find me. Very, very interesting way for them to take the God angle and tie it to the gift of being given high-tech, science-powered devices. The Enlightened are an atheist group that focus on humanitarian and community work. They believe that life is something every person has to take responsibility for, so that if we want the world to be a better place, we have to do it. The Enlightened, these folks are essentially organized atheists. They don't believe in any kind of higher power. Rather, they teach that human beings have to take care of each other, and they practice what they preach through various community outreach programs. House Varun. Oh boy. So in the game, you are not really sure what the complete truth is, but the gossip among the guards is this. A colony ship sets off for a new world, making grav jumps along the way. After one of the grav jumps, one of the passengers claims he spent that time communing with a celestial entity known as the Great Serpent. What was a few seconds for everyone else was much longer for him, and he brought back a mandate, which is basically get on board or be devoured when the Great Serpent encircles the universe. Is it true? I ain't saying. So in the game, you sometimes face off against House Varun zealots as an enemy group, and that's their motivation. I recently got the House Varun logo tattooed on my wrist, so yeah, I dig them. That's pretty cool. So yeah, House Varun is definitely a more radical group that is totally banking off this one dude who is preaching that the Great Serpent is going to just devour everything, and you're including yourself if you don't follow them. I'm kind of shocked, like, how did he convince these initial people that he wasn't just some crackpot fool just spouting nonsense? Or I hope we find out a lot more about them. I think they're pretty interesting. But yeah, the Enlightened are clearly like just a more be a good person kind of group, and Sanctum Universum is more that standard, like, conventional religion, like God is out there and that everything that they see is a sign pointing us towards God. So seems like it holds like pretty similar ties to existing religion, and maybe just goes a little more extreme in some cases, like House Varun, that are more just like culty than anything. Question 10, how many companions total will we be able to recruit? There are over 20 named characters who can join your crew. Over 20 total, and we really focused on the members of Constellation. 4 of them are from Constellation and have the most story and interaction with the player, but all of the named characters have their own backgrounds and can follow you around and carry your stuff. So that is pretty nice to know. I'm surprised there are actually that many. That's a healthy number. When we first began Starfield production, we looked back at our previous games and realized how popular and effective companions were, so they were a big priority for us, and we really wanted to tie them directly to the main quest. There are some really big moments with them specifically. I should also mention that our companion voice cast is amazing. We haven't released the list yet, but you can be sure that there are a lot of talented actors bringing those characters to life. Same for Constellation in general. So yeah, it's pretty cool to see that we have a good selection of companions. Now, this doesn't relate to crew members. We're going to have an opportunity, at least from my understanding, to get numerous crew members, and you can potentially get infinite crew members from some of the spaceports, depending on how the system works, to like help fill up our plethora of ships and outposts. But in terms of like actual companions, we obviously have our key Constellation members. We do know from like the recent news post this week that there are other Constellation members as well. It's interesting that Will is only mentioning that 4 of them are actually our potential companions. I'm wondering if those other Constellation members are just kind of true side characters and they don't have that companion functionality. But I'm guessing all of the factions will have some sort of companion aspect to it, where we can grab 1 or 2 members from each faction, and maybe some of the other major religions as well. We'll have to see. Question 11. When we assign crew members to work at Outposts, do we have to pay them salaries? I've been wondering this one as well. You just pay them once. We actually experimented with paying them regular salaries, but ultimately decided to just have the one cost up front. Yep, one-time payment. You can use the speech challenge game to negotiate over. Some traits also affect the cost. There's a lot to do in Starfield, and we wanted to minimize what the player had to constantly keep track of. I think this is a really good design choice, honestly. Like, being realistic, obviously salaries make more sense, just in terms of wages and the fact that these guys could be working on our outpost indefinitely. But I definitely appreciate that they're making it simple, just one-time cost, and then you can use the speech game challenge to potentially reduce or maybe even increase that cost if you really screw it up. So yeah, it looks like we're not getting exploitative sweatshop labor necessarily. We pay them once and they seem to be happy to be part of the crew from there onwards. Question 12. Will our companions be able to level up their perks? Will their perks stack with ours? All crew start with a set of skills at specific ranks. They don't level up, but they come at different ranks depending on the companion. So you might meet a character that's especially good at rifles, you hire them to watch your back, or you might meet an astrodynamics expert that will increase your grab jump range when assigned to your ship. Well, we call them skills in Starfield, and they do stack with yours when relevant. Some are there for flavor, to highlight the companion's backgrounds and interests, but you'll really feel the benefit of the ship and combat related ones. Getting a boost to your shields or seeing your companion laying fire down with a weapon they're proficient in are pretty sweet moments. That's kind of how I was expecting this to play out as well. There were some skills like geology where you'll see in the character, in the crew management still that we get in the direct, it doesn't highlight it when you actually assign them to an outpost, which made me believe that they're just kind of there and they do nothing. But you always see things like astrodynamics and any of the weapon proficiencies light up when they end up getting assigned to stuff. So that sounds like it's fairly in line with what we've seen, but it's good to know that they can't level up. And I would have been curious to see like how they would have been leveling up in any case. It seems like, at least again from the direct as a reference point, that whenever you had a more basic companion, or even crew member rather for that matter, they would have a more basic looking symbol beside their crew or companion name, which was usually a good indicator of how high their skills were ranked. Any of the main companions that were part of Constellation would always have some sort of like level 4 maxed out skill, and then 1 or 2 or 3 other mid-range skills. But the regular crew members that you just kind of find out in the wild or in the recruitment centers, they would only have 1 to 3 skills, and it would never have a maxed out skill. The last thing that's interesting is the perk stacking. I'm very curious how that actually will properly stack. Maybe it would be for certain ones like astrodynamics, where, you know, Sarah Morgan has level 4 astrodynamics and then you have level 3, and you just get an additive effect of the two. Maybe it can't go over the max, but at the very least it can like help push it up to some degree. We'll see. So question 13, what are your favorite parts of the game? This is obviously a very subjective one to Emil and Will's personal experiences developing and contributing to the game. So obviously it just sounds like they're very happy to be getting the game shipped out for us to play and enjoy, and it seems like they're very passionate about the work they've done to make each unique area of the game feel special, and then especially for the quest lines to have some real depth to them. I'm very excited for the quest. Will is awesome at building really deep quest lines from previous games he's contributed to, so I'm really excited to see what happens with some of the main quest lines, especially the campaign. Question 14, what books or movies had a big influence on some of the quests? I'm a history nerd, so I actually listen to a lot of podcasts like Hardcore History and the History of Rome. While our game is science fiction, I like how historians can tell you about how human beings react to extreme circumstances like war, famine, and technological breakthroughs, and you can imagine how we'd react to similar circumstances in a fictional setting, just at a grander scale. Emil's got a long list here, so Star Wars, OG Battlestar Galactica, Space 1999, Buck Rogers, long list. In all of those examples, you realize that outer space is two things: a source of mystery and wonder, and sometimes terror, and a giant blank page on which you can write any story. And we have written a lot of very different stories in Starfield. So cool, pretty subjective answer again, but interesting to see where they draw their influence on quests in the game. Question 15, so second last one here on the list. What are some favorite small details in Starfield to add to the immersion? Emil says, I think what I really love is that although humans are living in space and our aesthetic is very much NASA punk, it's a very lived-in universe and you can see it everywhere. Will says, I look really closely at all our outfits. You can see seams, materials, especially on spacesuits. Constellation members have patches on their spacesuits, and they're tied to what skills they have. Oh, that's really cool. I did not know that, and I will definitely be looking out for that when we get to see more close-ups on the suits. Emil says, you know, everyone loves the sandwiches, but it's the books that are lying around, the notes on the bulletin boards, the environmental storytelling that our level designers and world artists are so good at. That's a great point. Like, we've only seen like very small details so far in the ships and out in the environment, but there are all these like walls of like very detailed information. You see some things on the artifacts in the frontier. You've got all the space helmets and different pictures of Bosco on the wall. I'm really curious to see how much of that actually bleeds through into the full environment of the game. And if there's a lot, then I'm going to be very impressed. We also love buttons. There's a lot of buttons. I wonder what buttons we'll be able to press. So I'm a slow typer and somewhat typo obsessed. Totally love the work from our voice actors too. And the music, sound effects, and clothes, lol buttons. We do love our buttons. Oh, and I do want to mention this, if you haven't heard about it, Adam Savage and the team are building a filming model of the frontier. Yeah, I saw this earlier today. That looks super cool. Adam Savage is awesome, obviously, so I'm sure that will be a really cool project to see once it's done. And that ship, man, and all the ships, the level of detail is insane. Sweet, so obviously there's a lot to hopefully be excited for. I'm pretty sure most of this stuff is going to hold up, honestly. Like, they've been spending so much time on this, and the world is likely going to be so deep that everyone is going to be impressed in my mind. And our final question, question 16, what is the history of the mechs? Ooh, the mechs, good one. So we showed this a bit in one of the animated shorts. The mechs are leftovers from the Colony Wars. Note it's Colony War and not Colony Wars, singular. Both sides, United Colonies and Freestar Collective, had mechs, but the Freestar Collective really mastered them. The United Colonies had mechs too, but they also relied on controlled alien beasts from their Xeno Warfare division. Both of these were outlawed with the armistice that ended the Colony War. I'm not saying there's an old mech battleground in the game. I'm typing it. Mechs, not usable, no, they're in ruins. So I think the Xeno Warfare division piece is super fascinating here. I don't think any of us knew up until this point that there was a whole division of people dedicated to controlling alien beasts. I guess that's why it ends up being a skill for xenosociology, and that's kind of the roots of where that skill came from. I'm wondering if, like, when they controlled these alien beasts, were they riding them into battle like war horses, or were they just kind of sending them off on their way? Like, is there sort of like a tether range on like how far these guys can stay under control during the war? So yeah, very fascinating. It's too bad we can't use the mechs. I guess they're fully in ruins and they're not being manufactured anymore. I would not be surprised if we end up having some sort of quest where somebody has been secretly still manufacturing and working on old mechs to bring them back. I could definitely see that being part of either a DLC or just a fun hidden quest line with the remnants of the mechs from the Colony War. And I think that covers all 16 of the questions. Lots of very fascinating information here. I'd say like 80% of what we got here was totally new information. We got some subjective answers from Emil and Will talking about their favorite parts of development and what they're really excited to share with us about the game. You can tell they're very passionate about what they've been building over these past few years. And honestly, I think a lot of what they've said is definitely going to live up to the hype. And We're only like 2 weeks away now, so we're going to be the judges of that soon ourselves. That is all I have for you today. If you enjoyed this breakdown of those 16 questions, make sure to hit that subscribe button, hit all those buttons, whatever, drop a comment, and let me know what your thoughts are on some of the questions we went over here today. I'm curious to hear your thoughts as well. Have a good one. Peace.